It's late at night. You're alone in your home when there's a sudden knock at the door. You hesitate. On your doorstep stand two children. They ask to come inside. Their voices are calm, polite even. But something about them feels wrong. And then you notice their eyes. Black, completely black. No pupils, no whites, just endless darkness staring back at you. You slam the door. Your heart races, but the knocking continues. Tonight we dive into one of the most unsettling urban legends of the modern era, the black-eyed children. Our story begins on a quiet summer night in 1996. In Abilene, Texas, journalist Brian Bethel sat in his car, parked outside a local cinema, jotting down notes. It was a perfectly ordinary evening, the kind that passes by unnoticed, forgotten. But what happened next would not only sear itself into Bethel's memory, but also birth one of the most terrifying urban legends of the digital age. In the nascent world of the early internet, his story would become a spark in the darkness, igniting a fear that would spread like wildfire. A sudden, soft tap on his window broke the silence. Standing outside were two young boys, perhaps 9 or 10 years old. They were pale, and their speech, though articulate, felt strangely rehearsed, devoid of any youthful inflection. They told Bethel they wanted to see the new Mortal Kombat movie, but had left their money at their mother's house. It was a simple, almost plausible request. Could he give them a ride? At first, Bethel felt a pang of sympathy, but as the boys continued to speak, a profound and inexplicable dread began to wash over him. It was a primal, animalistic fear, the kind that screams predator. His rational mind tried to fight it, to find a logical reason for the sudden terror, but every instinct in his body was telling him that he was in grave danger. The boys' story felt hollow, their presence a violation of the natural order. The air in the car seemed to grow colder, the silence between their words heavier. It was then, as he leaned closer to the window, that he saw it. He had been trying to truly look at them, to understand the source of his fear, and his gaze fell upon their eyes. They were not human. There were no irises, no pupils, no sclera, just two pools of pure, unending night, like polished obsidian that seemed to drink the faint light of the parking lot. They were voids, utterly devoid of emotion or soul. As Bethel recoiled in horror, the boy's demeanor shifted instantly. The thin veneer of childhood innocence evaporated, replaced by a cold, unnerving insistence. Their voices, now laced with frustration, became demanding. "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay," one of them said, his tone flat and threatening. "Let us in." The implication was clear. They needed his permission. They needed to be invited. Without another thought, Bethel slammed his car into gear and sped away, his heart pounding against his ribs. Shaken, Bethel later shared his terrifying account on an online mailing list, a precursor to the forums and social media of today. He expected disbelief, perhaps ridicule. Instead, his story resonated with a terrifying clarity. It went viral, spreading across the burgeoning paranormal communities of the internet. And then, something even more chilling happened. Others began to come forward, sharing their own eerily similar encounters. That was the moment the legend was born. The moment the world first learned to fear the black-eyed children. From quiet suburbs to remote villages across the globe, the stories echo with a chilling consistency. Over the years, countless reports have surfaced, painting a disturbing portrait of a worldwide phenomenon. While details may vary, certain terrifying patterns appear again and again. These are not isolated nightmares, but shared experiences from credible witnesses, left forever changed by their brief, horrifying encounters. The visitors are children, typically between 6 and 16 years old, a disarming sight that masks their true nature. They often travel in pairs, a silent, unnerving duo. Their clothing is another unsettling detail, often strangely out of place. Sometimes it's outdated, like relics from a bygone era. Other times it's too formal, as if they don't quite belong in our time. They seem immune to the elements, existing outside our reality. Their approach is direct, their request simple, yet delivered with an unnerving, monotone persistence. "Let us in, we need to use your phone." They always ask for permission to enter, be it your home, your car, or even a tent. This strange adherence to rules hints at an ancient weakness. Like the vampires of old, they cannot cross a threshold uninvited. Their persistence is terrifying. They don't plead, they demand, their calm voices insisting that you must let them in. Long before you process their words, an overwhelming sense of dread takes hold. Witnesses describe a sudden, unnatural wave of panic. It's not a rational fear, but a deep primal terror that grips the soul, an instinct screaming that you are in the presence of a predator. The air grows cold, and every fiber of your being tells you to lock the door and get away. This feeling of pure menace radiates from them, a silent warning of the danger they represent. And then, as the dread reaches its peak, you see it, the one detail that shatters your reality. Their eyes. They are not the eyes of a child. The entire eye is a solid, bottomless black. No sclera, no iris, no pupil, just a void. An abyss that seems to absorb all light and hope from the world. Looking into them is like staring into nothingness, a chilling emptiness that reflects no light and holds no soul. To truly understand the menace of the black-eyed children, we must look closer at the strange traits and behaviors that set them apart from anything human. Witnesses consistently describe their unsettling appearance. Pale, almost waxy skin, bluish hue, greyish hue, as if blood no longer flows beneath the surface. Their hair is dark and lifeless, framing faces that are oddly expressionless, mask-like in their stillness. Their clothing adds another layer of unease. Old-fashioned dresses, tailored jackets, garments that seem handmade with odd stitching, mismatched buttons. Sometimes their clothes are pristine, untouched by weather or dirt, while in other cases they appear slightly too large or slightly too small, as if borrowed or ill-fitting. This peculiarity in their dress gives the impression that they are trying and failing to imitate what they think children are supposed to look like. But it's not just their appearance that disturbs. The black-eyed children follow a strict set of behaviors, almost like rituals. They never force entry. Instead, they ask, always politely, but with a chilling insistence. Let us in. We need to use your phone. Can we come inside? No matter how desperate their request, they never cross a threshold without permission. This unwavering adherence to the rule of invitation is one of the most consistent and perplexing traits, echoing ancient legends of supernatural beings bound by the laws of hospitality. During encounters, their speech is flat, emotionless, and often repetitive. They never seem to blink, and their movements are unnaturally smooth, almost robotic. Witnesses often report an overwhelming sense of dread or confusion, as if their minds are being influenced, clouded by a force they cannot see or resist. Perhaps the most disturbing behavior of all is their reaction to rejection. If denied entry, the black-eyed children do not argue or beg. They simply stand in silence, staring with those abyssal eyes until the witness retreats or flees. Only then do they vanish, sometimes in the blink of an eye, sometimes fading into the shadows, leaving behind a memory that will haunt their victim for years to come. These traits and behaviors are more than just details. They are clues to the true nature of the black-eyed children. Are they remnants of ancient folklore, or something far stranger, wearing the mask of innocence to gain our trust? The answer remains hidden in the darkness, just beyond the reach of reason. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the black-eyed children legend is not the chilling nature of the encounters themselves, but their sheer, inexplicable prevalence. From the quiet suburbs of America to the ancient lanes of England and the sprawling cities of Asia, these stories surface with a disturbing consistency. The internet has become a vast digital campfire around which witnesses from every corner of the globe share their harrowing tales. And while details may vary, the core elements remain unnervingly the same, painting a portrait of a phenomenon that transcends cultural and geographical boundaries. It's a modern myth, born in the digital age, but its roots feel ancient, primal, and deeply unsettling. Let's delve into some of the most compelling accounts that have cemented these figures as staples of modern horror. Our first account takes us to a remote corner of Vermont on a brutal winter night. An elderly couple, snowed in and isolated, were jolted from their sleep by a sharp, insistent knocking at their front door. A glance at the clock showed it was well past midnight. Who could possibly be out in such a blizzard? Cautiously, the husband peered through the peephole. 2 children, no older than 10, stood on their porch, shivering, their faces obscured by hoods. They spoke in a strange, flat monotone, asking to be let in to use the telephone. Every instinct in the wife's mind screamed that something was wrong. The children weren't dressed for the weather, and their persistence felt unnatural, demanding. But the husband, driven by a sense of duty, couldn't bear the thought of leaving children to freeze. Against his wife's desperate pleas, he unlatched the door. The moment they crossed the threshold, the atmosphere in the house changed. An oppressive silence fell, and the warmth from the fireplace seemed to vanish. Almost immediately, the husband felt a wave of profound weakness wash over him, a dizzying nausea that forced him into a chair. He felt as if his very life force was being drained away. It was then that his wife, her heart pounding with dread, saw what her husband had missed. As one of the children looked up towards the phone, its hood fell back. Where there should have been white, iris, and pupil, there was only a solid, bottomless black. They were like shark's eyes, devoid of all light, all humanity. A primal scream tore from the wife's throat. The children didn't flinch. They simply stood silently for a moment, their purpose seemingly thwarted by the woman's terror. Then, with an unnerving calm, they turned and walked back out into the blizzard, vanishing into the swirling snow. Later that night, the husband, now suffering from severe nosebleeds and a debilitating sickness doctors couldn't diagnose, was rushed to the hospital. He would eventually recover, but the memory of that night and the feeling of being prey would never leave them. Across the Atlantic, in Staffordshire, England, another terrifyingly intimate encounter was reported. A woman awoke in the middle of the night with the unshakable feeling of being watched. She tried to dismiss it as a dream, but the air in her bedroom was heavy and cold. Forcing her eyes open, she saw a figure standing at the foot of her bed. It was a young girl, her form silhouetted against the faint moonlight filtering through the window. The woman was paralyzed by a fear so profound she couldn't even draw breath to scream. The girl just stood there, observing her. When she finally managed to let out a cry, the child didn't run or fade away. She simply vanished in an instant, as if she were never there at all. But the encounter was far from over. For weeks afterward, the woman was plagued by the feeling of a malevolent presence. She would see movement in her peripheral vision and hear faint whispers, just on the edge of hearing. The sense of being watched, of being a target, lingered long after the girl with the coal-black eyes was gone. Our final story comes from a lone driver on a deserted stretch of highway in the American Midwest. Exhausted after a long day, the man was making his way home when his headlights caught two small figures on the shoulder of the road ahead. They were children, seemingly trying to flag him down. His initial thought was that there had been an accident. A sense of unease crept over him. It was the middle of nowhere and past 2 a.m., but his conscience wouldn't let him drive by. He pulled over and rolled down his passenger side window. "Are you kids okay? Do you need help?" he asked. One of the children, a boy, stepped closer to the car. "We need to get home," the boy said, his voice eerily devoid of emotion. "Can you give us a ride?" As the boy spoke, he leaned into the light from the dashboard, and the driver's blood ran cold. His eyes were not human. They were gaping black pits. The driver didn't even reply. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, tires screaming on the asphalt as he sped away. He risked a glance in his rearview mirror, expecting to see them shrinking in the distance. Instead, they were standing perfectly still in the very center of the road, watching him go. They made no move to follow, yet the driver was overcome with the terrifying certainty that he hadn't escaped, but had merely been dismissed. These stories, and countless others like them, continue to surface, each one adding another layer to the chilling enigma. Different places, different people, but the details remain eerily similar. The insistent request for entry, the monotone voice, the overwhelming sense of dread, and of course the eyes. So what are they? Paranormal investigators theorize they could be demonic entities or malevolent spirits for whom an invitation is a necessary prerequisite to causing harm, a classic trope in folklore. Others suggest they are something else entirely, alien-human hybrids, or interdimensional beings struggling to understand our world. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. The legend of the black-eyed children serves as a stark reminder that not all who ask for help are in need, and not all that appears innocent is safe. So if you hear that knock late one night, that quiet plea to be let in, perhaps you should check the peephole first. As chilling as the stories are, what truly fuels the legend are the countless theories. For some, these encounters are evidence of the paranormal. Demonic entities, restless spirits. These spirits need explicit permission to cross the threshold and wreak havoc. Echoing age-old tales of vampires' malicious fae. These investigators point to the children's unnatural aura, their hypnotic speech, and the physical symptoms reported by witnesses as proof of supernatural origins. Others take a more extraterrestrial approach. According to these theorists, the black-eyed children are not spirits at all, but alien-human hybrids, sent to study or infiltrate humanity. Pitch black eyes, emotionless voices, awkward interactions seen as signs of beings struggling to mimic human behavior. Some even connect these encounters to broader UFO phenomena, suggesting a coordinated interstellar experiment. A third camp believes the answer lies not in the supernatural or extraterrestrial, but in the human psyche itself. Skeptics argue that the black-eyed children are a product of modern urban legend, memes of fear that spread through online forums and late-night campfire stories. They point out that many reports contain similar details, likely influenced by earlier accounts. Sleep paralysis, suggestibility, and the power of shared narrative may be enough to explain the phenomenon without invoking the otherworldly. And then there are those who believe the truth lies somewhere in between, a blend of psychological, cultural, and perhaps even unexplained elements that keeps the mystery alive. The origin of the black-eyed children remains as shadowy as the figures themselves, an enduring puzzle that continues to haunt our collective imagination. So what do you think? Are the black-eyed children a supernatural threat, a cosmic experiment, or simply a modern myth born from our deepest fears? Let us know your theories in the comments below. The mystery, as always, is far from solved. Thank you for watching this episode of the Unseen Shadow Archives. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what you think the black-eyed children really are. Your support helps us keep exploring the strange, the haunted, and the unseen.